Hey everyone, my name is Hayley Walsh, author of Making March and Crayons and Chaos, but I'm here today to tell you about my review of And So It Goes by Raynette Mitchell. This book can be found on Australian Book Lovers. I really enjoyed this book by fellow Aussie author Raynette Mitchell. Raynette is one of the many fellow self-published authors I have connected with via the Twitterverse. I liked the sound of her book, so I bought it. When I finally got around to reading it, I was far from disappointed. It tells a story about everyday people and what can happen with a tangled web of lies when it begins to unravel. Our protagonist is Karen. We hear about her first love, John, via flashbacks to her past. Sadly, their relationship didn't work out. This then leads her to meeting Martin, and they eventually end up settling down and getting married. It was a whirlwind romance and progresses very fast. So much so that Karen fails to see that Martin is a self-absorbed and boring man. Although she loves Martin, he can be a difficult man and there is no real spark between them. From Karen's perspective, there never really has been. For her, their marriage was simply comfortable and he was someone who could offer her a good life. Turning to the internet, Karen gets stuck in a sticky web of lies and deception. Let's just say she is enjoying the attention from the new men in her life. She is playing a very dangerous game. Her secrets go undiscovered until fate intervenes on a rainy night. This is a fast-paced book with plenty of twists and turns along the way, and will have you hooked from the very first page. The author has you caring about Karen and what will happen to her even though she is doing something dishonest. Raynette has created a very real and relatable character who you will feel empathy for. There are lots of Australian references which I loved and descriptions of places familiar to me. I really look forward to reading more work by this author, and I give it 5 stars.
Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us once again for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission, in case you don't know, is always to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature spanning a whole range of genres to book lovers all around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I am Darren Kazenko, science fiction and horror author, reader, and one of your hosts and co-founder of Australian Book Lovers, and I'm coming to you today from Corner Country in South Australia.
And I'm Veronica Strachan, fantasy, memoir and picture book writer, reader, and your other co-founder and host for today, coming to you from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country in Victoria.
Yes, and it's a special edition. Well, it is for me because it is podcast episode number 22.
Couple of ducks, 22.
Well, yeah, I don't know about a couple of ducks, but it was, well, you've taken the pride out of my 22.
Oh, sorry.
Basketball joke now.
That's a bingo call. 22.
People were probably sniggering by my back when I was a kid. That's what was happening. I think it was Ducky Duck. No, 22 was my basketball number when I was a little kid.
Oh, there you go.
I lived to breathe basketball for a while there. And not that I'm overly tall or overly athletic, but I did love the game. And I was quite proud of my number 22. And so it's got a soft spot in my heart for that number. So, yes, very happy to reach this episode, this little milestone in the Australian Book Lovers podcast journey.
Very good. It is it's a significant event. We've kind of moved past the biggies. And, when you are that age, there's big milestones, aren't there, until you get to 18 and then you get to 21 and then there's a little gap really to 25 and then you hit your 30s and then you don't really care and then all of a sudden you're 40 before you know it, you're 50 and then, oh my goodness, you're 60. So yeah, 22 is a little way away, but I was having some good time. I think I was nursing. Yeah, I was nursing at that stage, so yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely having some good times, and lots of, I think, heavy metal by that stage, I think, and university and all the fun stuff that comes with that combination. But you're right, it's there are milestones definitely. They seem to be bigger and more profound milestones when you're younger. But I've often thought that as I am moving forward in time and space, that I guess when people talk about not wanting to step out of their comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I always wonder myself, is that what makes us feel like time is accelerating a little bit quicker? Because back in when I look back at my younger days from 8 onwards, new adventures were so awesome, and that really brought a huge sparkle to life. And new adventures was a direct result of never being in your comfort zone, because for a whole period of life, there's so often that you're doing stuff that you've never done before. You're experiencing things you've never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, you get to a point where, especially when you work full time and every day there's no new experience. And I think maybe some of that magic, wonderful part of your brain says, oh, well, I guess we don't have to worry about being prepared for that excitement anymore. And then, of course, the next thing is, oh, I don't want to step out of my comfort zone. And it's like, but stepping out of the comfort zone is the same as being an 8-year-old, maybe, I don't know, going to some exotic place for the first time, or, spending a day in the city with your friends for the very first time, where all the sights, the sounds, the smells, the sense of anything's possible. Yeah. So
but there are many things in my mind I'm going, yeah, this is true. And actually, there's an argument about who has to decide what's for dinner, because when you've decided for 60 years, it's like, well, not 60, because your parents probably did the early stuff, but then it's like, making those decisions is really annoying and boring. So who would like to do that for me? However, there are many, many things, many new things that I have yet to experience. And it's not a bucket list per se, but there are lots of things that are still out there that will bring me that excitement of whether I was 8 or 18 or 28. And also I think there is a degree of, not tolerance, what is it, or intolerance for repetition, I find. And there's a sense that you need to bring yourself to every moment. So it's one of the reasons why it has to be a really good YA book, like young adult book, for me to read it, because I think, yeah, but that's not what I would have done, because I would have been around some of those cycles, 2 or 3 times. It's the same with, working,
yes, yes.
And you've seen the new person comes in, the new person does toe cutting, sweeps clean, starts to do things, and then they slide back into a particular way of working. And then the next new boss comes in.
Broom sweeps the cleanest.
That's it. So look, there are cycles in business and in life that you start to recognise, but the danger is if you don't change, as you said, if you sort of let things stay in the comfort zone. So if you find yourself in the comfort zone and you're thinking, hang on a minute, I think I've done this a lot, even if you don't recognise it, if you've got good friends who go, hey, Veronica, I think you always react that way, and you go, okay, maybe I do. So when there's some soul searching and some deep reflection and all those kind of things, well, that's really helpful. So there is my nice segue to 10 benefits of reading, why you should read every day.
Well, before you mention that, if you are finding yourself in a bit of a rut when it comes to cooking, one approach that I've thought about, because I do most of the cooking, and I mean, I love it, but it does become not a chore, but it's a little bit monotonous. So one thing we might both want to try is, rather than thinking, what will we cook for dinner tonight?
Yep.
We can think about, which stores will we rob from tonight for the food? We could, and then suddenly, wow, what an adventure to go into the shop to getting food will be. That'll be putting a big zest, spring in life. Life will definitely feel a bit more passionate then, and we'll see if we can go.
Well, that there's no Uber up where I live. I live in the country, so there is no Uber, so you can't do that. Pizza will be delivered. For a getaway. No, it's not so good. So No,
but you're right, and that's the trick, I think, as we move through space and time. Because back when we're younger, those events, those milestones, those magical moments where your brain is discovering things for the very first time, they come flying at you. So that you're going to experience them whether you like it or not. And, that's that adrenaline-filled, mad rush that is youth and those years. And but as we do get a little bit more mature, I think the trick is to realise that they're not going to come at you thick and fast. That's not to say they're not out there, but it just becomes the onus of responsibility. It falls now on our shoulder or on my shoulder to seek and discover and enjoy those elements of life that will reinvigorate the soul. And they can be simple things like, choosing to rob tonight's dinner rather than pay for it. But no, I only joke with that. But, try a different book to read.
Yes,
read
something completely different. Yes.
Something off the menu when you go to a restaurant.
Yes.
Take it. And sometimes I've heard people say taking a different route to work when you drive or ride a bike.
Yeah.
can really sharpen up your brain as well, just because it sort of snaps that part that says, I only need to be on automatic pilot today. And then when it's like, oh, hang on, haven't gone this way before, and then all the little neurons come firing up. So yes, there we go.
Very good.
All that comes from number 22, the basketball little kid that now I know was really ducky duck.
No. Only if you played bingo. Only if your family played bingo.
No, can't remember myself being much of a bingo player.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's because your generation had the internet and computers and those kind of things.
No,
Okay.
I had a Commodore 64 VIC-20
Well, there you go. At least you had that.
and a TRS-80. Now, what do you think? Shall we jump to some news for the episode number 22?
Yes.
Or did you want to?
Well, actually, no. Let me just talk about the writing, the couple of articles that I had. Or I'm going to do. I've got something for readers and something for writers. So maybe I'll do the something for writers. Writing can improve your mental health, and here's how. So this is an article that I spotted. I think somebody put it on Twitter. It's from The Conversation, so theconversation.com, and the author is Christina Thatcher, who is a creative writing lecturer at Cardiff Metropolitan University. So that would be, of course, in Wales. There you go. And interesting there, and of course I followed all the links and went to all the 200 studies that show that positive writing, the positive effect of writing on mental health. And I've known a good deal of this because I am a journaler. So I know about journaling and how important that is in terms of the expressive writing and reflective writing. And as a coach, I will often give writing exercises or journal homework to the people that I'm coaching because, expressive writing, it allows people to write about their thoughts and feelings in related to a stressful life event. And it's sometimes really good to put it on the paper and then to have a look and see, what does it mean? What does it bring up? And it all kind of enhances self-awareness, as does reflective writing, which is something that it's a little bit different, but it gives you a way to kind of assess your beliefs and your actions around learning and development. So I guess in terms of even last episode when you were talking about, the globalization and the one language and all of those kind of things, you could do some reflective writing and work out where that came from and what that means and what the consequences and implications and those kind of things. So yeah, you can assess your beliefs and actions with that. So it means for me that a person's mind then becomes open and then they get a bit curious. And if they're getting a bit confused and then they start to get curious, then I know they're on the right track, because people will often come to me for coaching when they're a bit, I don't know what to do. And then we have a bit of a look, and what it means is that change is on the horizon. Because the first step is knowing that you don't want to stay where you are. You want to do something different. So away they go. And then, of course, there's creative writing, which is all the things that we tend to talk about, poetry, short stories and, books, etc. And while it employs the imagination, as well as, or instead of memory, if you're doing, memoir and history and those kind of things, but it, particularly in fiction, but in non-fiction as well, you can use literary devices like imagery and metaphor to convey meaning. And again, it's that opportunity to explore your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas, and your beliefs. So, one of the things that the author quotes here, tell me the author's name again, Christina. One of the things that Christina quotes here, and it just really pinged my mind, is that you can write a science fiction novel that represents your concerns about climate change. And we spoke to T.S. Simons, Tanya, about that. Or a children's story that speaks to your beliefs about friendship. And that's kind of, that prompted me to think about, Lynne Lumsden-Green, who I spoke with, and we'll be listening to her interview later in this episode. Friendship in childhood, so important. You could even write a poem from the perspective of an owl as a way to represent your insomnia. So there's lots of different ways creative writing can help you through challenging experiences, through debriefing, and of course, through grief. Hence my other book, which is, Breathing While Drowning, where I did write journals, and they were incredibly helpful as life buoys to get me through, processing that grief over a number of years. So writing is very good. Basically, it's healthy. It's good for your mental health. So get out there and do some writing.
Yeah,
so even if you're a reader and you've never done any, set yourself just some little exercises to write just a little paragraph a day. There are lots of prompts that you can get and join a group. So,
but you raised such a really good point in the sense of, you know, and I, again, can't speak for everybody, but I'm sure there's a lot of people, listeners out there or people out there in general, that if you raise the idea of writing, a lot of people just think, you know, they have that generic concept of, oh, writing. So writing a story, trying to get it published, or writing a manuscript, trying to get it published, as opposed to, no, writing is a form of expression. And it's also a tool where one can begin to unravel, reveal, and nurture and develop your own relationship with yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And the more self-aware you are, the more you're going to be inclined to live your best life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's no different to, you know, imagine some of the greatest songs that have been written may have started with somebody sitting down and just tapping on a couple of keys on the piano, or sitting down with a guitar and just doing a strum with no goal in mind, but just to let something come out. And eventually, but by alerting that part of yourself, you know, within your heart, your soul, whatever term you'd like to use, by igniting and alerting that part that it's allowed to have a little bit of a conversation with you, it will come out, and its voice will get louder and louder. And, you know, that's why if you're a musician, you may discover the type of music that flows through you. As a writer, you start to write, you'll identify certain themes maybe, or elements of yourself that you're able to look at from different perspectives. So it's just a beautiful way to have that relationship with yourself, which is so important and is an eternal challenge.
Yes.
I don't think any of us are 100% satisfied with who we are. I tilt my hat to anyone who can proudly and confidently say that they are. But, you know, I'm always trying to develop a better relationship with myself, because I don't always have a good relationship with myself. And that's that's how it seeps into life. When sometimes you're uncertain, sometimes you've got a lack of confidence, sometimes you don't want to step out of your comfort zone, like we were talking about before. All these things. So I can definitely agree with you on the idea that something as personal, beautiful, and easy as journaling, where you're not writing for an audience, you're writing for yourself. And, you know, haven't tried it, give it a shot. Definitely. And, I mean, is that something you found when you journaled? Did you find it more of a release, or more of a way to develop that relationship with yourself and maybe bring it to a better, more understanding level?
Yeah, I definitely started with a different thing in mind. I, as a nurse, often worked night duty, and I was working full time and was the primary carer at home with the kids, and I was missing a lot of their childhood because I did work, 40 hours a week. So in some ways it was recording my thoughts to them so that they could remember them as an older child. And because my mum died when my second daughter was born, so I didn't have that to share the good things about and say, they walked today, they crawled today, they did this today, whatever. And so I recorded all of those things that either I saw or Ian told me that they'd done. And then you can't help it but do exactly as you mentioned, which is you start to write your thoughts and your emotions and your feelings. And then you go, well, why? Why do I feel like that? Why am I angry about that bit, or guilty? I knew I was guilty. The working mother. Why did that make me feel good? Or, all of those kind of things. So it does help you unpack that kind of new person, peel a few layers back to see what is important to me. What is it that makes me smile? Why is it that I think gratitude is such an important thing to be aware of? And it wasn't until I started to look back at journals and realize that the things that I wrote about that made me feel better were family and friends. And while I'd always been out in the workforce, I'd always been someone who's worked, for 40, what am I up to now, 40 odd years. And that's important to me as well. And I often would do really long hours as a, senior manager, all those kind of things. Why would I do that? And I look back now and I think, you feel you've wasted so much of your time. But then I go, right, you know what? That means bring yourself to every moment, do new things, start a podcast with a friend that you met on Twitter.
Yes.
There you go, and jump into it. So it does allow you to reflect. It does allow you to express, debrief, acknowledge, and just record some really cool stuff. So yeah, my kids I wouldn't say they're hanging to get their journals, because I stopped writing them in a while, and as they became adults and I was able to talk sensibly to them. But yeah, it is interesting reading what your younger self thought was important.
Yes, and I think looking back, I'm guilty of it most definitely, and that is seeking validation from others as you do in life.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned about working your proverbial butt off and
Yep.
putting in those long hours. I've been guilty of doing that as well. And, you know, looking back, there was such a badge of honor for doing it, you know.
Yes.
How many hours I've
Yeah,
done?
I'm so busy. People go, oh, she's so
14 hour
busy.
days this week.
Oh, it's crazy.
And it was just trying to be validated. So to balance that, something like journaling or writing in general, or any artistic form of expression that you can do on your own, so that you can explore that relationship with yourself. Wow, what a beautiful thing is to also put yourself in a position to be able to offer a little bit of validation to yourself.
Yes.
And that means the amount of validation you can give to yourself takes away from the amount of validation that you might normally seek in a world that is, you know, in a general word, crazy. So, you know, but better when you can get that validation from yourself, and it's going to come, you know, with a lot more weight, and it's going to be the golden version, not the insane LSD sprinkling cats on riding cows through glitter stuff. And
Okay.
yeah,
That's perhaps a conversation we need to have offline, Darren.
no, that's not what I saw that time. No, but yeah, and so writing has to be good for the soul, has to be good for mental health, and anything that allows you to talk to yourself a little bit and become a good buddy with yourself. And then
You
that's
can
gonna
be
make your
honest
brain
with yourself.
happier.
Nobody needs to see you journal, and it can just be a way to go, yep, I've written that down. I can actually close the page on that. And I know there are, you know, I've been at, you know, workshops and courses and those kind of things where you actually write down stuff that you really want to get rid of, and then you actually burn it, chuck it on a fire or something, go, yeah, thanks, finish with that. And it's that physical that, you know, I talked about it of being such a visual person, and seeing that go up in flames, you go, oh, I'm actually finished with that. That's really good.
Yep, it's gone. Defrag the hard drive.
Defrag the hard drive, yes, the generational stuff. All right, give me some spotlights. Tell me about some of our books and our fabulous Australian book lovers authors. What have we got for
Absolutely.
us
Well, it
this week?
sounds like we've got a perfect segue then to the
Yes.
news.
Doot, 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 doot.
Doot, doot. And yes, time to do a super fun little new segment where we spotlight some of the awesome books that are on the website, and looking at quite a few different titles today. And look, the last episode we had a couple of horrors and we had a book of poetry. So I thought we'd do something a little bit different in this list. But we do have one of the titles that I mentioned on the last podcast was the book called Lostralia, which is actually one huge poem by Geoffrey Gay. And so Lostralia by Geoffrey Gay can be found under our Aussie Tales. And I'll read the description. It does sound quite fascinating. Lostralia is an epic poem that takes place in the continent of Ralia, bracket Australia. I should say Ralia then, in an anachronistic medieval setting. The Crown Prince Cavalier wishes to marry the Lady Adelaide, but his plans are thwarted by the Dark Lord Perth, who schemes to use her to lure Cavalier to the west to meld two mysterious shields and bring about eternal chaos. With the aid of the Grand Duke Albury, Cavalier and Sir Sedney upset Perth's plans and establish a kingdom of love and true liberty. Lostralia was originally a handwritten work that this author finished in 1986. So not only is it a tongue twister to read that description, it does sound fascinating. I think it's about 200 pages or so, but it is one epic poem. So as
Fantastic.
in the description. So if poetry is your jam, and maybe you'd like to have a bit of a sneak peek at what a big, huge epic like that would read like as part of a poem, jump onto Aussie Tales and you'll find Lostralia by Geoffrey Gay under that genre listing.
Very good.
And while you are under the Aussie Tales, there is also a wonderful title called The Drover by author Pat Ritter. And The Drover reads as follows. Harry Williams, from the age of 10 years, wanted to become a drover, like his father and his grandfather before him. This is his life story of leaving school at 10 years old, operating his first droving plant at 13 years, and fully operational at 21 years old. Droving is now a craft past its use-by date. Harry Williams didn't think so. So that is The Drover. So if you want the dust and the soil and the sun-drenched skies, definitely something to read by Pat Ritter. Now, that is under Aussie Tales, and you'll also find it under our biography and memoir section. Now, in celebration of our wonderful guest today that you had the pleasure of interviewing,
Yes.
none other than Lynne Lumsden-Green,
Yep.
I thought I'd read the brief synopsis for her book, Summerbrook Spring,
Very good.
which we can find on the middle grade genre. And Summerbrook Spring by Lynne Lumsden-Green reads as, 10-year-old Freya Patel thinks it is rubbish her family are living on her grand's farm in Australia for a year, leaving everything she knows behind in London. Emma Lloyd is excited to have a girl her own age come to live next door. She's lived on a family dairy farm her whole life. Can such different girls be friends? When Maisie the cow gets in trouble, they must join forces to save her newborn calf. So a cool little read there. That's Summerbrook
Yes.
Spring by Lynne Lumsden-Green, once again under our middle grade genre. And staying under our middle grade genre, we also have Paws by Kate Foster. And this is a fun little read. So Paws is as follows. Friends are what happen when you're making other plans. Everything is changing for 11-year-old Alex, and as an autistic person, change can be terrifying. With the first day of high school only a couple of months away, Alex is sure that having a friend by his side will help. So he's devised a plan. Impress the kids at school by winning a trophy at the Paws Dog Show with his trusty sidekick, Kevin. Should be a walk in the park, right? And that is Paws by Kate Foster, once again, part of our middle grade selection. The irony is, of course, the best year I had with number 22 as a basketball player was when I was 11 years old. So
there you
I feel
go.
for you, Alex. And one last one, and this is also under the middle grade, being that it is a middle grade author that we're talking to today. This book is called A True Person, which is by Gabrielle Marin, and the book is illustrated by Jackie Grantford. And A True Person reads as, the most fundamental of all rights is an asylum seeker's right to freedom. Zala and her mother have escaped their war-torn country and are looking for safety in Australia. Instead of freedom, they find themselves in a refugee detention centre. Zala struggles with the reason for this punishment. A True Person is a moving story which highlights the bond between mother and daughter in times of adversity. For Zala, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we celebrate with her as she realises what it means to be a true person. And that is A True Person by Gabrielle Marin and illustrated by Jackie Grantford, which can be found under our middle grade genres.
Very good.
Excellent. So that's just a
good mix.
very sprinkle of books that can be found on the website. So regardless of what super excitement you want to bring to your imagination, there is a title on the Australian Book Lovers website that will absolutely fulfill that need straight away. So whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, horrors, biography, children's, young adults, what are we missing? Historical fiction. There's so many. Contemporary.
Fantasy? You said fantasy? I think you said fantasy.
I've got all the
Romance.
animals flashing through my brain. But do jump on the website, have a look, and support a great Australian author. That was just very quick sprinkle of a couple of awesome titles. And look at the range. Look at the choices there. You know, from droving to a little girl's plight in a detention centre, and to a dog competition, to saving a newborn calf. So
Yes.
there we go. Not to mention a 200-page epic poem written
Yes.
about an alternative reality version of Australia.
People's
Everything is
creativity is fantastic.
Yes.
Yes.
So, but that was a little bit of a spotlight on books. But before I end the news or end my news part for today's episode, I wanted to just highlight the Environment Award for Children's Literature 2021 shortlist, which has been announced. It was announced on the 21st of June. And that, once again, that was the Environment Award for Children's Literature 2021. So the Wilderness Society has announced the shortlist for the 2021 Environment Award for Children's Literature. And the shortlisted entries in each category are, and I'll just run through some titles because it sounds so cool. So in the non-fiction category, the shortlisted titles are The Wonderful Wisdom of Ants by Philip Bunting, published by Omnibus Books. Another title, Hold On, Saving the Spotted Handfish, and that's by Gina Newton, illustrated by Rachel Tribou, and that's actually from CSIRO Publishing. We have Tree Beings by Raymond Huber, illustrated by Sandra Sevagini, and that's from EK Books. And we have, I love this title, Ninja Bandicoots and Turbocharged Wombats. I mean, that's a t-shirt I want and a book I want to read. So Ninja Bandicoots and Turbocharged Wombats is authored by Hazel Flynn and Piccolo Nero. Now for picture fiction, or for the picture fiction category, there is The Giant and the Sea, which is by Trent Jamieson and illustrated by Ravina Kai Hatchett. We have Bandits by, and some of these names are a bit tricky, so hopefully I get it right. Bandits by Shannon Anthes Hatchett. Give Me Some Space by Philip Bunting, and that's from Omnibus Books. And sorry, the Hatchett is the publisher, sorry.
Oh, Hachette.
Hachette, my apologies, yes.
Yep.
Brother Moon by Marie McCarthy, and that's illustrated by Samantha Fry, and that's from Magabala Books. And Larry Leadbeater, Field Notes from a Fairy Possum, written by Joe Watson, and that comes from Little Steps Publishing. And for the last little category, we've got the fiction. We've got Eddie's Experiments 2, How to Be the Best, and that's by Charlotte Barkler and illustrated by Sandy Flett. We have, here we go, The Carbon Neutral Adventures of the Indefatigably... Indefatigable?
Yeah.
Let's go again. The Carbon Neutral Adventures of the Indefatigable Enviro Teens. Woo!
Oh.
Bracket, First Dog on the Moon, A and U. So I don't know what that means, but sounds like a complicated story there, but it's a fun one nonetheless. Wow, that was a challenge. I've never heard of the word indefatigable.
I think it means untiring, doesn't it?
Oh,
fatigue, as in fatigue? Indefatigable. Well, you look that one up. You have a little rest.
It brings me fatigue trying to pronounce it.
Yeah, you have a little rest and look that one up while I tell our listeners my news. So I thought it would be kind of helpful to do just a little bit of a follow-up on Goodreads because an article came up in the killyourdarlings.com.au, a website certainly worth having a bit of a look at. They do reading, writing, podcasting, lots of bits and pieces. But they had an article on culture recently, which was how Goodreads is changing book culture. So you might remember that Goodreads is the kind of readers' book lists where you can keep your to be read pile, you can write reviews, you can join groups. I've just been in a group that's been nominating which fantasy books they want to read together over the next little while because then you can chat about them together. So it's a great, and there are millions and millions and millions of people on there. So it's fantastic. So this article, How Goodreads is Changing Book Culture, suggests that the online platform, so this is by Beth Driscoll, sorry I should say, on the 16th of June, just gone this year. Online platforms have shifted the power dynamics between readers, authors and traditional gatekeepers, with readers able to share their emotional, moral and political reactions in real time. So do Goodreads reviewers now exercise too much power over publishers or the right amount? So I encourage you to go and have a little read of that article because I won't go through all of it. But it was interesting that, you know, they were suggesting that with the new online spheres, which people, you know, write reviews on Goodreads, they write them on Instagrams, you can put them on Facebook, all those kind of things. And you're not obliged to, like for Amazon, you're obliged to have spent $50 on their site within the last 12 months before they'll let you write a review, whether you bought the book or not. But a lot of these, you know, you don't have to. So it can be used positively, but of course it can also be used negatively. So distributing advanced reader copies is a kind of a marketing strategy, but sometimes it goes awry. There's, you know, stories of books that have got out there and people have gone, yeah, we don't like that, or we don't like the way that that person's represented, or those kind of things, or stereotypes, and people have had to pull books. Well, they don't have to, but they've chosen to take their book back and to rewrite it more sensitively, those kind of things. But it's interesting that you can now have discussions globally to understand how, you know, books impact on readers. And so, you know, there's different platforms. So the bookish side is Goodreads. A lot of the public writing controversies play out on Twitter. And I'll put my hand up and say, yep, not that I'm controversial, but that I've seen a lot of them play out. But it means that the publishers are a bit more aware now of the desires of readers. And while they've been kind of more abstract as to what they think readers need, readers are now saying, hey, this is what we like, this is what we don't like. You know, so the gatekeepers are not so much the publishing industry, but what this article suggests is that the readers are more likely to be young, to be women, to be people of colour, and they're not necessarily already well networked or located in the metropolitan centres of London and New York. You know, as we say, every movie seems to happen in New York, which is not true, but there are a lot of them out there. So 75% of Goodreads users present as women. And so that their agency, this article suggests, redresses the persistent gender inequity in book culture, where those who speak have often been men. Writers' Festival are most likely to have men on the stage and women in the audience. You know, so she notes here that in 2014, a panel of children's authors, this must, you know, bringing it all back to children's authors, at Book Expo in the US did not include any women or people of colour. So, you know, they challenged then, readers then challenged what was being put before them by the writing industry, by the publishing industry, those kind of things. So, yeah, people can be active participants in the book culture without being authors. So all of our readers out there, be active participants, read the books that not only we're presenting as Australian authors, but search out other Australian authors, search out First Nations authors, search out people of colour as authors, all different, you know, challenge your kind of standard representation that is often put before us. Exercise your power wisely.
Glad you added that caveat at the end, because I, with respect, I might play a little bit of a devil's advocate here, and that is, at what point does the act of reading sway into becoming a political tool as opposed to a outlet for entertainment?
Oh, it certainly can, because
but is that the role of a reader though, as opposed to having like if there's a selection of books on a table, the reader, whatever the mood they're in for, if they find something that's going to satisfy that mood, that's what they're going to go for. So they may be in the mood for a cookbook, or they may be in the mood for a horror book. But is there a point where does it get dangerous territory when the question is asked of readers to start making conscious decisions regardless of what their entertainment would like to be, but what you'd like to see happen in the publishing world? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, not necessarily. It goes, the article is quite long, so I didn't want to go on it, but I think it's worth saying that another thing that is brought up is to think of readers as censors requires seeing them as a mob of vigilantes or a mass of cogs that turns the capitalist machinery. But of course, the full picture is more nuanced. So, you know, this woman has read thousands of Goodreads reviews, for example. Some are funny, some are curious, some are resistant, some are deeply personal, but in many of them, the emotions run high. So I don't think you could say that there is necessarily a political sway in this. I think you're more likely to find that on something like on Twitter or, you know, Facebook or one of the those more interactive social media platforms. But what they're suggesting is that the power of the people, so the power of publishing no longer rests with the traditional gatekeepers, that there is a lot of influence in social media and around the platforms, particularly that readers use, to express themselves. And yeah, they can be moral actors and there can be collective engagement, but it's also a shift in our understanding of books as what's described in this article, deeply personal objects, even more meaningfully entwined with readers' emotions, beliefs and lives. So yeah, it's really worthwhile. So Beth Driscoll, who's the author, she's an associate professor in publishing and communications at the University of Melbourne. And yeah, I suggest that you jump onto Kill Your Darlings and have a look. And if you enjoy those, yeah, subscribe to their website and have a little read. All of it, food for thought.
Absolutely food for thought. Thinking about getting that cookbook on the table of the proverbial devil's advocate section. No, you're right. I mean, it's just the changes that have gone through the industry are just so overwhelming since the digital books have come into play, and and especially when the publishing of digital books fell into the hands equally of both the publishers and the writers, because there's no distinction, there's no difference in access for either avenue. Now, the amount of money you want to spend marketing a book, that's a whole different thing, but that applies to anything in life when it comes to, capitalist society or any sort of marketing, any product in the country around the world. The more you can spend advertising, the better chance you might have of get your product reaching a customer's hands. That doesn't mean the customer's going to like it, but they'll at least be in a position to try it to see if they like it. So yeah, I think, when it comes to the gatekeeping aspects, so to speak, of the big publishers, they can't be holding on to it for much longer, surely.
No.
Because you can find any book you want now. And if you can't see it, write it and you can put it up there.
Yes.
And when it comes to, you know, it's a little bit different to say a song perhaps, or images that can be really offensive, and you can actually be presented with it and have to experience it against your consent or without warning. Where a book can be a little bit, not always, but I think in general books are a bit different because you have to read a book.
Yes.
And it takes a while, and you can, within 2 sentences, if you don't like what's written, you can close the book.
You can close it, exactly.
And it's done. And
yes.
you walk away and it never happened, as opposed to being shown something, you know, some sort of shocking imagery or something that maybe, you know, you can't unsee, so to speak, or you can't unhear. A book is a very personal thing, and, you know, one of the unique forms of art, I think, where you really, this is going to sound a little bit controversial, you're only going to be offended if you put yourself in a position to be offended. Not most times. Like, I'm not going to, if I'm reading something and I can feel like I'm going to be offended or it's not for me, the decision is up to me whether I want to keep reading or not. As opposed,
whether you want to feel that sense of outrage or whether
so it's just a funny thing. Yes. So.
Okay.
But interesting. Yeah, I know.
Okay, all right. I'm going to move us along to 10 benefits of reading, which is my second little article that I wanted to share about readers. So why you should read every day. Now, I probably take that a bit too far because I read a lot every day. If ever I have a moment, I'm either reading on my little tablet or I'm reading a paperback book. Never let a moment go by. So the 10 reasons, according to, and this is from an article by Catherine Winter on lifehack.org, so you can have a look there. And she suggests, number 1, mental stimulation. Studies have shown that staying mentally stimulated can slow the progress or possibly even prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. She's only got one article to support that, so I'd suggest to have a little bit more into that before I said yes. But what I do agree with is that just like any other muscle in the body, the brain requires exercise to keep it strong and healthy. So use it or lose it. So doing puzzles and playing games is also helpful, but read is good. Number 2, stress reduction. No matter how much stress you have at work, in your personal relationships or countless other issues, it all just slips away if you lose yourself in a great story. And this is one of the things I love about stories, is that, you know, a well-written book can totally transport you to another realm. Yes, I'm a fantasy reader and writer, but yes, that's good. Or even an engaging article. As I've just said, I got sucked into reading all those articles about, writing and reading and the Goodreads thing. So yes, that's number 2. Number 3 is knowledge. That's kind of a given, really. Everything you read fills your head with new little bits of information. And you never know when it might come in handy, when it might pop up in a conversation, or when you're in a trivia quiz, or when somebody asks you about something and you go, oh, actually, there. Or what I really love is when you make those connections with 2 or 3 random bits of information that have come from completely different areas or whatever, and then out of left field, you just bring 3 things together and you make a hot water bottle winter jacket thing.
Yes.
That's right. We won't go back into that. Number 4.
No, please do not try that at home.
Number 4, vocabulary expansion. So today we've learned indefatigable. So have you looked up to see what it means?
Oh, no, I don't even want to see that word again. And I'm just so embarrassed that you just ripped that out so quick and easy, Dan.
Verisimilitude. Oh, no, I won't be able to say it. But Lynne brings out a fabulous word that looks fantastic. I've often seen it written, but I've never been able to use it in a conversation. She whips it out. You hear. That's fantastic.
Well, while you mentioned that, I think you were absolutely, I just popped it into the Google machine, and it is of a person or their efforts persisting tirelessly.
There you go.
So as opposed to my attempts to pronounce that word properly, so I would not fall in the category of somebody who is indefatigable.
Okay. All right. But anyway, our vocabulary can expand. Number 5, memory improvement. So when you read a book, you have to remember the characters, their backgrounds, their ambitions, the history, etc., all of those kind of things. So, and also the plots. You know, some people are great, the puzzle people and thrillers, and I don't know how they remember that, but yes. Number 6, stronger analytical thinking skills. So if you've read a mystery novel and you've solved the mystery before finishing the book, fantastic. You know, you've got that same ability to analyse details in your back pocket when you have to look at, what purchase you'll make, or who you'll go to discuss, your will, or, choosing all sorts of different things. So that's a good one too. Yes, definitely stronger analytical thinking skills. And one of the books that immediately comes to mind is the Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erickson. Is his name Steven Erickson? I think so. But I love it because they are so complicated, and he drops you into the middle of this war that's been going on for decades, and he has so many characters. It's an epic fantasy, of course, but it is so rich in the plot and the mystery and the puzzles of who's doing what and who belongs to who and which deities are driving which bits of the army and the population. Yeah, I love it. It's really good. Number 7, improved focus and concentration. In our internet-crazed world, attention is drawn in a million different directions, but this woman is telling us is in a single 5-minute span, the average person will divide their time between working on a task, checking their email, chatting with a couple of people, via Zoom or Skype, etc., keeping an eye on Twitter, monitoring their smartphone, and interacting with their co-workers. So, that's what you would do in 5 minutes.
And turning the fountain on for the cat.
Indeed. But when you read a book, all of your attention is focused on the story and the rest of the world falls away. So what she suggests is that you read for 15 or 20 minutes before work. You'll be surprised, even if it's on your morning commute, you'd be surprised at how much more focused you are once you get to the office. So there you go.
It's like being in a cinema. When you sit in a cinema and the lights go down and in theory everyone's phones are off, you've got total focus. And the same thing with a good book. If you're going to dedicate some time to read, whether it be out in the sun, in a hammock, on your favourite couch, wherever it is, as soon as you open that page, then your whole level of focus changes.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful
absolutely.
thing, almost meditative.
Yes, yeah, most definitely. All right, 3 to go. Number 8, better writing skills. This goes hand in hand with the expansion of your vocabulary. So if you're exposed to published, well-written work, it has an effect on your own writing because you can't help but absorb and observe people, the writers, the cadence, the fluidity and the writing style. So that's good things. Same way musicians influence each other and painters, etc. Number 9 is tranquility, just as you mentioned. So in addition to relaxation, it's possible that the subject that you read about can bring you that inner peace and tranquility. So if you're reading spiritual texts or inspiring motivational work, etc. And the last one is the best, free entertainment. So, you can go to your local library and bask, this is a quote, bask in the glory of the countless tomes available there for free. So, get out there to your local libraries. And if you're on lockdown, a lot of libraries in Victoria were doing click and collect and doing deliveries. We've got mobile libraries for a lot of our regional areas. So please support your local library because it's free entertainment.
Absolutely. Well, it's kind of like the original Netflix.
Yeah, it is.
For readers like me who love reading. I walk in there and every show's on there.
So I thought there were 10 great benefits of reading, why you should read every day.
Yeah, I couldn't think of one reason to combat it and say I don't think there's one reason in the world to say why you shouldn't read. That 10 is probably just the tip of the iceberg, but all fantastic reasons to read. I mean, as book lovers, we're preaching to the choir, but I still love walking into a library, and I don't know how many times, after during when I went back to school and doing high school and stuff, and I was, you borrow all the good books, and even back then, I loved my non-fiction and science books and whatnot, and I remember, catching the bus and go to get the connecting bus and sit down and start reading, and one minute there'd be, crowds all around me. Next minute I'd look up and realise I've missed 2 buses on the only way to the...
No.
I just get so engrossed in the books, and it didn't faze me because the the outside world sort of it's like you turn the volume down on the outside world and you turn the volume up, swell that volume inside the internal the internal world and imagination. But and I like the idea of reading a little bit before work too. Just it's quiet time, isn't it? It's a moment to yourself. The whole world's going to be doing everything it can to get your attention. As soon as you turn any electronic device, it wants your attention.
Yes.
So why not give yourself some attention?
Get that blue light out of your face, etc. Now, tell me, what books did you read? You've just said that you liked non-fiction even then, but what fiction books do you remember reading as a child?
Yeah, I was thinking about that before, and I know that I read, even though I did say in the last podcast that ghosts aren't really my thing, but they were when I was, sort of 8 to 12, I suppose, 8 to 10. But I do remember, one of the real big memories is the Choose Your Own Adventure books. There was a whole range of them, and including some you use dice. For example, if you come across a monster and you got to roll the dice. But in general, it was if you want to do this, turn to page this, but if you think you want to do this, turn to this page. And they were fantastic fun. But look, to be honest, I had a good think, and I did get for a little bit into Tintin comics.
Right. Yes.
I think maybe even some Doctor Who, like the book versions.
Yeah.
But I think part of my twisted nature comes from the fact I can remember it distinctly, even at 11, already just going straight into horror books. I was reading Stephen King. I remember reading a book called The Burning, which was like actually definitely not for kids. That was and I think what some other good ones? Yeah, James Herbert. They just completely got my attention, got my imagination. But as far as like I was trying to think, where that transition was from, prior to sort of reading, quote unquote adult books, the older titles. But yeah, I definitely remember having a huge range of fun with the Choose Your Own Adventures. Loved them because you could read them more than once.
Yes, and get so many more different stories out of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
And I did just have a look on Google images, and it sort of said, Choose Your Own Adventure books from the 80s, and came up with all the images, and I was looking, and oh my God, there was talk about flashbacks. I'm like, oh wow. But there were so many of them too, but they were fantastic. What about yourself?
Well, I also did the Google to try and remember some, because I did make a bit of a list of what I remembered, but rather than looking at the 80s, I was looking at the 50s and 60s. But anyway, some of the ones that I do remember, there was a fantastic series by Tove Jansson, who was a Finnish writer, Moomin Trolls, Moomin Papa and Moomin Mama, which they were, I guess, a picture book, but also chapter books. And people who love Tove Jansson will know that, the Moomin, Moomin, the Moomin people are out there. So that was a good one. I read A Wrinkle in Time. I read The Secret Garden. I read The Wizard of Earthsea, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe.
I just read that one.
All of those. Heidi was incredibly
Heidi.
Impact. Yes, I remember that. And because
that
when
does
I was
ring a bell.
Anna Spirey, I think, was the author. When Shirley Temple acted in Heidi, of course, I loved Shirley Temple movies. We would sometimes go to the pictures to see Shirley Temple, and sometimes I used to get called Shirley Temple because, of course, I had curly hair, and that they would say, Shirley Temple curly. Anyway, all those kind of things. But I did love Heidi. Then Heidi Comes Home and Heidi's Children, and all.
No,
all
I'm thinking
those.
of a different series. I'm thinking a completely different story.
All right, let's move on. I read the Shoes series by Noel Stratfield, which is the dancing shoes, the theatre shoes, the ballet shoes, the skating shoes, and that it was an English author, and it was about, of course, little girls who, either coveted the shoes or wore the shoes and all those kind of things. So the shoe series was good. For Australian stuff, then the Silver Brumby series, and this is something that, when I was talking to Lynne, Lynne read the Silver Brumby series, and that was by Lynne Mitchell. I always wanted a horse, but I lived in Pascoe Vale, so there was no horses. I was one of 8 children, so again, no horses. But you can hear the story in the interview. But it was interesting that while I only read kind of the first 7, which stopped in the first 6 or 7, I think, which stopped in the 70s when I was a young teenager, that series went on. So I don't know if it was the same author or whether she's been writing over that 40 years. Perhaps she has. There you go. Ash Road by Ivan Southwell, Storm Boy by Colin Thiel. I Can Jump Puddles. I remember being so sad. I Can Jump Puddles. That was so hard for that little kid with polio, but he didn't let it stop him. He just went for it.
See, and then that brings back instant memories when my father was alive, and when I could have only been 7, maybe 6 or 7, and he had gone to an auction and came back with a box. He'd bought a box full of books because back then I loved reading. He went there for something else. He's like, here we go, got a good deal, and ripped open the box, and I remember that was the first box. The book I pulled out was I Can Jump Puddles.
Puddles,
Yes, so
fantastic. 7 Little Australians by Ethel Turner.
Don't know that one.
Don't know that one. Oh, and then that was a series. They turned that into a TV series on Channel 7 with Leonard Teal was the stern father. But yeah, I love Seven Little Australians. Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie, the Magic Pudding, all those kind of Australian ones. The Shira Lee, that was fantastic. Often Mum and Dad would save up and get Reader's Digest books for us, which you could get on a discount, then, you know, lay by and those kind of things. And so you'd get some for Christmas. So yeah, those ones are fantastic.
Well, see, bringing back now one other memory, and that is a huge, and I'm thinking again around the 7, 8, huge hardcover book by Reader's Digest called Into the Unknown. And that one had, you know, one chapter was on the Loch Ness Monster, one chapter was on Bigfoot and possible aliens. And I remember on the ghost chapter, there was a picture of a gentleman in a car with a creepy looking lady with like shining eyes in the back seat. And apparently he had just visited his mother's grave. This is the description of the photo. And when they took the photo of him in the car, there was nobody in the back seat, and he only saw that way. And of course, looking at it, it's like it was expensive to process film.
Yes.
Why would you take a boring photo of someone sitting in the car back then? But as a kid, it was absolutely terrifying photo. And as soon as I got the fear sort of eased off, I come ready to look again.
Yeah.
I go through and, I shouldn't have looked at that.
Read it with the lights on. Yes. All right. I'm still on my list. I'm nearly there. I loved animals, of course, when I was a kid. So Lassie Come Home, you know, dogs. Black Beauty, you know, the horse, you know, National Velvet, loved all of those. Dusty, which is a story of a calf, similar, no, not similar to Lynn's. Watership Down, about rabbits, you know. So all of those ones were really important. And of course, there was an absolute plethora of Enid Blyton books. So The Magic Faraway Tree, The Enchanted Forest, etc., the Famous Five, The Secret Seven. All of those were, you know, the grist for the mill of the voracious reader that I was as a kid.
Yeah, I can't imagine a time, I can't think of any time since as far back as I can remember that didn't involve books.
Yeah.
Isn't that the strange thing? It's one of the only constants. I think I've mentioned that before. It's probably one of the only constants in my life.
Yeah.
Is books or...
Yeah. And they are a comfort and entertaining and educational and all those kind of things. I do want to mention that, of course, the Famous Five have now been absolutely ripped off, which is hilarious. A friend sent me one of these. So now you can get 5 Go on a strategy away day. You can get 5 Give Up the Booze, 5 Go gluten-free, 5 Go parenting, 5 Escape Brexit Island, 5 at the office Christmas party. It is very funny. And my kids all got a Famous Five for grown-ups, it's called. Yes, so because my daughter teaches, you know, organisational learning, so I think she got the strategy away day, and I think 5 Lose Dad in the 5 Lose Dad in the garden centre. I gave to one of them because Ian does spend a fair bit of time at Bunnings in the garden centre. But yes, we did have some. 5 Forget Mother's Day. Ooh, that's not a good one. So yeah.
5 reckon they know when the free skins are coming.
That's right. 5 do Dry January. So yeah, no, it is very funny. So there you go. So that's a little
so, yeah,
trip into the past. Yeah, it was good. And just to mention age levels for children. So this is the final thing before we head off to chat with Lynne.
Yeah, which is of course the reason why
we're doing that.
This.
Yes. That's it. So this is the information is from Book Editing Associates, and it was updated on the 1st of April this year. So we're pretty current. And this is by Ayla Myrick. And she says if you're writing a children's book, it pays to be familiar with how publishers classify them. So while we've got a certain number of pages on our website and we're growing them, you know, we started with just children's books, but now we've got children's, middle age and young adult. So what she suggests is the generally assigned age formats for readers for various formats, because it's, of course, a little more complex than what we've got it. Board books, newborn to age 3, but then picture books can be from ages 3 to 8. So picture books are more likely to be, you know, with just paper pages. Colouring and activity books, 3 to 8. Novelty books, ages 3 and up, depending on the content. So you might have fold-out books, or you might have things that you can, you know, feel and brush and those kind of things, or, you know, add bits and pieces to them. Early levelled readers, ages 5 to 9. First chapter books, ages 6 to 9 or 7 to 10. middle grade books, ages 8 to 12, and young adult, or YA as that's known, ages 12 and up or 14 and up. So, you can mix a little bit, but that gives you a sense of if you're looking in a shop or you're looking online, if you want to narrow down your choices for your kids' book purchases, you can have a look there.
Yeah, I always find that idea fascinating. I mean, I don't have children, so I haven't gone through that developmental stages, but I have seen my friends' kids, for example, how fluent they are at the age of 5 with electronic devices. And, surely that must play a role at some point in I guess the cognition of toddlers in general, because if they're growing up in an environment with electronic devices, does that have a direct correlation to how fast they pick up reading and how quick they progress through that reading stages? Because
and their fine motor control in particular, because I've seen little tiny ones who can barely walk, but they can expand a picture with their thumb and their finger.
That's right.
Or they know how to swipe.
Exit them out and get that game going again. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
But again, the reason why we've had such a wonderful chat about those books we read growing up and all that is because of the fantastic author and fantastic person all round that you had the opportunity to chat with for today's interview.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you a little bit about Lynne. So
Please do.
Yes. So Lynne Lumsden-Green, but I'll just get my bits and pieces sorted. So Lynne is enjoying the ageing process, contrary to all expectations, is what she writes in her about the author. She completed a bachelor degree in science, and after her midlife crisis, went back and completed a Bachelor of Arts in creative writing. She writes both fiction and non-fiction, and she owns more books than bookshelves. She says having degrees in science and the arts gives her the balance between rationality and creativity. So she also spent 15 years as the science queen for HarperCollins Voyager Online. These days, she captains the writing race for the Australian Writers Marketplace on Facebook when, she's not writing. So there you go.
That's one hell of a resume to be able to have a degree in science and in creative writing.
Yes.
What a fantastic little palette to be able to work from.
Yes, because in fact she's a zoologist by training. So, fantastic.
Wow. I hope there's a book coming soon about all those exotic creatures in outer space that who knows what the story will be, but I'm sure that the animals will be super cool if she does do something like that.
Yes, well, she'll, verisimilitude, which I really should have had a little practice because now I sound like you and the Indefatigable.
Don't say that word.
Let's go to Lynne and we'll, enjoy her erudition.
Absolutely. So without further ado, the wonderful, spectacular, and very generous to give her time, Lynne.
And welcome, book lovers, to another fabulous interview. And I'm delighted that we have with us today Lynne Lumsden-Green, and she's the author of Summerbrook Spring, which is #1 in the Summerbrook Bestie series. So welcome, Lynne.
Hello, pleased to be here.
Very good. And Lynne, can I ask you, what country do you write on? Who are the traditional owners of the land where you live and work?
Okay, now I'm probably going to mess this up a lot because I don't know how to pronounce it properly, but it's the Jagera, and Gudaputtal peoples of Ipswich and Springfield.
Fantastic. I think we are all learning many more of the traditional owners' languages and bits and pieces as things become more apparent. So I'm writing on Wurrung land, which is down in Melbourne, just on the border, which is in the Macedon Ranges in Victoria. And it's fantastic. I just posted a letter off today where I put Wurundjeri country on the address, which is, it's good. Little bits and pieces. Slowly we are acknowledging the traditional owners. So thank you for that.
No worries. It's actually in the front of the our first book. We actually do a small snippet where we acknowledge the traditional owners. We acknowledge the people of the Yagara and Yunga language groups as custodians of the lands of the Summerbrook Bestie stories take place and pay respect to their elders.
That's
at the very start of the book before you get into the story.
That is lovely, and it's something that I do in my own books as well. And I think it's so important. I was talking to somebody recently about storytelling as such an incredibly powerful medium for education and for entertainment and for messaging. And I think, the storytellers from, the Aboriginal culture in our communities have been around for so many years, and storytelling, oral storytelling, has been such an important part of what we're learning as well.
It is. I think, well, storytelling started as an oral tradition.
Yes.
And we come from a very strong background in oral storytelling. So, yes, I think oral storytelling as well as written storytelling are both as equally important as each other.
Yeah, fantastic. So it brings me to my first question for you. When did you first admit that you were a writer?
Look, I started writing as soon as I learnt to write. It was, I think, just a natural progression from when I was a little girl and I loved to read.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote my very first play when I was in grade 3.
Ah, fantastic.
And then in grade 5, I took a story that I had finished into my teacher, and he took it to where the student teachers and all the other teachers were talking, and I had a special math class. And when I went into the math class, my very scary math teacher said to me, "Could I see you after class,
Oh,
Lynne?"
no.
And I thought, oh, I'm in trouble. And then he said, "I read your story and it's really good. And I think that sometime in the future you will be a writer."
Ah.
And I was like, oh, that wasn't scary at all. That was really, really nice.
Really lovely.
Yeah. So I've always been encouraged a lot by that. But
Mhm.
it wasn't until the last 15, 20 years that I really started taking myself seriously as a writer. And I
Mm.
think the big step forward was when I actually got some business cards that said Lynne Lumsden-Green, writer.
Ah.
And when they turned up and I started giving those out, I thought, no, look, I can actually say I think I'm officially a writer now.
Fantastic. It was there, literally in front of you. That is brilliant. Yeah.
It
very
was. And
good.
it's actually, I think, something I would encourage other emerging writers to do, is
Mhm.
to make that step to start seeing yourself as a business person, not just a writer,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Just owning it.
owning it all the way.
Yeah. Okay. So staying in childhood, tell me about your favourite books as a child. What did you read?
Oh, I was a big reader,
Mhm.
but my very first favourite book was one that my father used to read to me just about every night, and
Mhm.
every now and then my mum, but we had a small child in the family, my sister,
Mhm.
so she didn't read to me as much as what my dad did.
Mm.
And it was the Disney version of Peter Pan.
Right.
Very un-PC these days, I'd imagine, but
Yep.
I loved it, and I knew it so well that if he tried to skip a page, I could recite it from memory.
Very good.
Then as I got older and I was able to read for myself, it was a revelation to read I, Robot by Isaac Asimov when I was 8.
Beautiful.
And I was like, oh, wow, stories about science as well. I didn't
Yeah.
realise at the time that I was going to turn out to be a really huge science nerd. And so I really loved those, started reading everything I could to do with science fiction. And then as I got older, just about everybody, but you know how little girls go through that really bad horsey stage?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I then fell in love with horse books as well as science fiction, and went through reading this whole Silver Brumby series by Lynne Mitchell.
Love those.
And
Love those.
I love those. And
Yes.
I still love them. I mean, okay, it's not what I could write, but
Mhm.
I did a terrible, terrible rip-off of the Silver Brumby when I was about 12. I
Oh,
wrote
it's called
this,
fan fiction, down, Lynn. You can
Yeah,
say that it's fan fiction.
well, I wrote a very long and novel length for a small child of 12 book based basically on Silver Brumby, but with my own horses. So yeah.
Ah, very good, very good. Yeah, well, sadly, I lived in the suburbs of Melbourne, so there were no horses for us except the dairy draft horses. When I was little, they were still bringing the milk around in the morning, and we used to go up after school and feed them grass through the cracks in the stable. So that was as close as I got to the Silver Brumby. Beautiful. What a mix, though.
My
Science
horses
fiction.
were plastic toy horses.
There you go.
Pardon?
What a great mix, though. Science fiction and the Silver Brumby. Oh, the Asimov series and all of those. What other science fiction authors did you love?
Other fiction authors as an
Sorry,
adult?
other science fiction authors, Lynn?
Oh, other science fiction authors.
Yes.
Oh, well, I was a mad keen on Arthur C. Clarke.
Ah, yes, great.
And I really liked Ursula Le Guin.
Oh, the best.
Yeah, all her, everything that she wrote was like a magic to me. And Andre Norton.
Yes.
I read a lot of her work as well. And even as an adult, I read a lot of her work. I actually, all the authors that I'm speaking of now, I still like as an adult and still read as an adult. And my personally, like, I don't know if 19 counts as a child, but I found the Pern series.
Ah, yes, beautiful.
And fell madly in love.
Yes,
Anne McCaffrey's Pern series at 19, fell madly in love with that and have been a big fan of her work. But also too, now you're going to probably laugh, but Diana Wynne Jones.
Ah, no, I have read one of her, I think a 3-book series that I read, a trilogy, and that was lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, all of her, everything she's ever, even though it's meant to be for young adult, most of her work is just that magical. I can't resist it.
Yes. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Beautiful. So then from there, tell us a little bit about Summerbrook Besties.
Okay, Summerbrook Besties is based on 2 girls living in a farming community in the Scenic Rim area of Queensland, which is out the back of Ipswich and the Gold Coast. So it's like a bowl. That's why it's called the Rim, because it's got a big bunch of mountains that surround it, and made up a town, Volki, which means home in German, and or town. And so they live on side by side. One girl's lived on the farms all her life. That's Emma, and the other girl, Freya, is a recent immigrant from London. So everything in Australian is quite new and strange to her. So it's the contrast between these 2 girls who end up finding out that they connect very strongly of the love of animals and also books, and become best friends.
Ah, very good. So tell me, who's the audience for Summerbrook Besties?
Boys and girls. Between the ages of 8 and 12. I'd like to think that an older child could read these books with pleasure as well, because I often think that young adult and children's literature should be well enough written that an adult can read it and still enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But by the same token, the themes and the characters are aimed at that age group.
Okay. So out on the farm.
Middle grade readers.
Middle grade.
Yes.
Okay, lovely. Yes. Beautiful. So tell me, Lynn, what was your research for all of the farming events that happen?
Well, there's a story there.
Okay.
As a child, we had friends who would go out to visit their cousins that lived out on dairy farms and various other farms out Toowoomba way. And because we were very good friends, I'd go with them. So I would spend one holiday a year living on a farm with my friends and helping the farming community. Then when I grew up, I actually studied zoology before I became realised that you could be a writer as a career. So and spent a lot of time, because zoology in southeast Queensland is often quite farming based and marine based, spent a lot of time either fishing things out of the water or out on farms. So also too, having friends with farms, you get to spend some time out on farms and all the rest. So it wasn't like I went completely, I don't know anything about farms when I started writing the stories. Particularly some of the stories are based on my own personal experience at that age on a farm. So I've tried to keep it real. But we also went out to a small school at Harrisburg, which is again west of Ipswich, and I spoke to a great deal of children who actually live on the farm. Hi, Harrisburg kids, you wonderful bunch of kids you are. And they were very kind and shared a lot of their stories with me so that I could update some of the experiences that those children obviously this is a different era. There's a lot more technology. So they gave me some insights into what it's really like to live on a farm right now.
Beautiful. Because it is very much more scientific these days too, isn't it? Farming.
Yes, but the kids aren't so much into the science as they are into the technology.
Right.
And I was amazed to find that the biggest problem for them, of course, is download speeds, because they're out in the middle of nowhere.
Of course, yep.
And so their biggest worry is, we can't connect in, it's so slow. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not something that was a hassle when I was 10, but okay. I can relate to that now in a big way.
Yes.
So yes.
So
these kids were very really happy to sit down and talk about their own experiences on farms. And I must admit that I was just blown away at how sweet and lovely these kids were. So yeah.
Fantastic. Let's tell our listeners who should be reading your books. I mean, you've mentioned that it's middle grade, but who in particular should be reading your books?
I'd like to think that city children who don't live on farms and don't really know what a farm is like to live on would be the most interested in reading the books, particularly maybe even children from overseas who don't know what Australia's like, because I want to normalise what the experience is living on a farm, but also too I'd like to think a child living on those farms could pick up one of the books and go, hey, this is like my life. It's not like pretend. This is really what happens and what, So what I'd like to think is, though, that the main thing is that it's city children who love animals and would love to spend time on a farm, get to have a little bit of a fantasy life by reading my book and thinking, oh, this would be great if I could just do this.
Yeah, sounds good. So tell me then, when you were writing this, where was the inspiration from? So, obviously there's zoology in the background and your own experience. What made you go this way rather than perhaps, the science fiction and fantasy, which I know you also write? And I've got some questions about that. But tell me the inspiration for Summerbrook Spring.
Well, Summerbrook Spring is going to be a series of 4 books based around these 2 girls over a year.
Right.
And this Summerbrook Springs that when Freya first moves to Australia with her family, and the inspiration came from actually my publisher, Robin, I spent a lot of time in London, and we were talking one day and we were talking about how a book like that, there isn't really one for the experience of coming to Australia that is from a child's point of view rather than an adult's point of view. And it just grew from there. It became and then Robin said, well, why don't we give it a go and try writing these books? And I went, okay, because I'm not a girl who can say no. So we gave it a go, and it turned out really well. Robin is part of the Springfield Writers Group,
right,
and that's how we connected. So again, it's a case of not what you know, but who you know.
Yes, always.
But her publishing ventures haven't really been into children's books as much before, so this is a learning experience for both of us. But by the same token, she is a professional publisher, and so she's been able to give me a very good experience as an emerging author, because she's very supportive. Like both her and her partner Gary, who's also part of Ironbridge Publishing, have both been very supportive. They took me and the 2 ladies that are in charge of looking after the cover and the illustrations out for a day where we went and had a look at the whole area where we're writing about to get inspiration for settings and characterization and everything.
Brilliant.
So we've the inspiration for it, I think, is just a lived inspiration, and coming up with the idea that we'd like something that included sea kids and farming kids and people from overseas, just normalising the whole idea that everybody's just another person that you can make friends with.
Yes.
Everybody is a potential friend.
Fantastic.
We also wanted to bring into the story the idea of a lived-in community, which is something that farming communities have more than probably city kids have, because a community in a city will be your street rather than a whole town or a whole farming community. So we're trying to bring in the farming idea of living in your community and cooperating in your community. So really the two underlying ideas for the books are friendship and community.
Fantastic. And so important, really important. So how's book number 2 coming along?
Book number 2 just had its 3rd run through edit.
Woohoo.
Making some changes to, adding another subplot and intensifying the characterization. I'm never happy. I would like to just keep playing with a story until I've killed it.
Yes.
So at this point I go, okay, don't look at it anymore. Give it to Robin. Let Robin have a look at it. She'll tell you if anything needs to be changed. Now, I'm diva when it comes to changes. So normally when she comes up with ideas or things that she wants changed, I'm happy to do that because I can see where she's coming from and I can see that her suggestions are usually really spot on.
It's an interesting process, isn't it, when someone gives you those fantastic insights and that defensiveness that as a writer we go, oh, but I really liked what I said there. Oh, but actually, I can see what she means. Yeah,
the first few times you get edited as particularly when you're just starting out, you do feel like it's an attack. I do know that. So for any newbie writers out there, it's not. They're actually trying to help you. They're actually trying to do their best to make your writing the very best it can be. So that's where I come from. When people edit me now, even when they're being critical of something, I know that it's not coming from a place of attack. It's coming from a place of constructive criticism.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lynne, you've talked a little bit about the lived experience in your writing, but how much research is involved for you?
Oh, I'm a research queen.
Okay.
Before I start anything, I'll draw maps so that I've got a really good idea of where all the action's taking place. I might even map out a house so that if they're living in a house, I've got a very good idea of where all the rooms are and what the rooms will look like. I will also do just a load of research, like even now while I'm still writing the Summerbrook Besties series. I go on every day and read the rural news to see what's happening in the out in the farming areas. And before I started, I did like deep into reading books about people who'd lived on farms, reading stuff online, reading blogs by people that live on farms, which is often a really good source of what's happening on a day-to-day basis on a farm. But even when I'm writing stuff for other like science fiction and fantasy, people go, oh, what can you research for that? Well, there's always stuff that's based on, like, my personal favorite, horses in fantasy just seem to be able to run forever.
Yes.
No, in real life, a horse would overheat and die if you tried to do that. So I will research how far you can walk if people are walking a distance, how far you can walk before it becomes untenable, that you can be walking without collapsing and that sort of thing. I will research that. Science fiction, well, I've got a science degree and I'm also a science nerd. So I always try to base any of my science fiction on like really strong, proper physics and chemistry and biology.
That's great.
The other thing is I like to read textbooks for fun. So it's not the hardest thing in the world for me to research. Yeah. But the other thing is, with research, there's something that I was taught at university called verisimilitude.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big word.
Yes.
But what it means is not pushing the reader out with inaccurate or clashing details.
Yeah.
And by doing a lot of research, you get a very good, clear world picture of where you're working. And so you don't have that issue that you're going to bring in a detail that will push the reader out. You want to have that reader submerged into that world and thinking all the time that that's where they are. They don't have to go, oh, wait a second. You know, I mean, if somebody got hit in the chest with a bullet, they're not going to get up and keep running even if they've got a lot of adrenaline. Because
No, flesh wounds are not really flesh wounds, are they?
yeah. You know, they're having trouble breathing and beating blood at the moment. So, yeah, people who get swords through their shoulders and get up and start still fighting, and I'm thinking, shock? Where's your shock? Where's the pain? Like, you know, adrenaline doesn't completely wash that pain out. Adrenaline's only a short-term thing. Yeah, so you've got it. It's probably part of being a science nerd is that I know that human beings are only human beings and can only do so much. But by the same token, I think it helps because people have an instinct for when it's not authentic detail.
Yes.
Even children have a very good idea of when you're making it up and it's not real. So I think research is very important. As you can tell, I'm a research nerd.
I can tell we hit the passion button there. That was fantastic.
Well, we hit the passion button there. I'm one of the big things that I will tell new writers is there is no such thing as too much research. By the same token, there is a point where you have to say, okay, I've got all the detail I need. Now I have to step back and actually write
and put the story out there. Yes. All right.
Put the story out there.
Lynne, this is the time for me to admit that a friend and I, well, actually Darren, who's the other co-founder, we're writing an adventure together, and we had a horse. We had them escaping on horseback from, you know, a country town. But when we looked at the time frame, the horse would have had to gallop for about 12 hours to get the distance.
It'd be dead.
So I said, you know, that's not going to cut it. And I did my research and looked up and thought, okay, so no, a gallop's not going to last that long, even if it was a miracle horse. So yes, we did change our time frame. So thank you. Yes, I will admit that that's very important.
It's important to know too, because we don't know that we're going to cause somebody to do some inadvertent animal cruelty by trying to make their horse gallop for hours, and then can't understand why the poor horse has just collapsed on the ground in heat exhaustion and dying from dehydration.
Water. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Horses drink an enormous amount of water.
Yes. There you go. And look, as a midwife, that's, you know, was my clinical career for about 25 years. It's nothing more annoying than having strange birthing practices. And I go, that's just not happening. You know, no, that wouldn't happen. And my children won't let me watch any birthing stories on the telly anymore because they say, well, you know, mum's just going to say, no, that baby's not 6 hours old. It's 6 weeks old because it's smiling at the camera. So yes, those kind of things do throw you out of a story.
I do that. But there's a reason why those babies are older is they're not allowed to be filmed under the age of 2 weeks. But by the same token, because it's television or something, I go, okay, that they're taking poetic license with that baby and stuff like that. Poetic license is allowed, but there's you can cross the line there between poetic license and out and out making things up. So
this is true. All right, so Lynne, as an emerging writer, what is your advice for any of our listeners who are aspiring to be authors? What would you suggest to them?
Oh my goodness, look, now aspiring authors, I try to write every day, but there's just sometimes you get to that point where you're out of oomph. And you just need to take a rest or everything's going to go stale. So if everybody says to you, oh, write every day, take into account that you're only a human being and that every now and then you will need a rest. When they say write what interests you, and often they say write what you know, it actually means that write what enthuses you, what makes you excited, because that excitement and enthusiasm will actually come through in your prose. Read broadly and not just on your own genre. That's another. I think that's very important because for two reasons. One, if you're only reading in your own genre, you will get stale. And two, if you're reading in other people's genres and even reading textbooks, you're picking up details that you might find really fascinating that will be unique to your own writing. I think non-fiction books can be a great source of inspiration. I mean, seriously, I just had the biggest collection of textbooks of anybody I know who isn't actually doing a university degree or teaching a university degree. don't be afraid to ask for help from other writers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm in a really great writing group, but even before I joined the writing group, I had a network of friends that I could, put things out with them, to ask them questions, because everybody's got a different method. And so talking to somebody else about a problem you're having, they might have a way around it that you never even thought of. And another thing is, don't be afraid to try new things. Oh, new things are the best. So never think you know everything. Just keep trying to be a better writer every day. If somebody says, hey, this is a great writing book about writing, and you think, oh, I know everything. No, go get that book from the library or borrow it off them and just have a read, because there's always something new to learn. And the other thing, this is one of the most important things I think any writer, emerging or otherwise, needs to know, is that I sincerely believe everybody has a story to tell. So become a good listener. Because you can never predict what that story is going to be, and you never can predict what's going to connect with your readers. So just listening to other people's stories can give you inspiration to write your own. So I think being a good listener is very important to being a good writer.
Definitely. I'd have to agree with you there. Lynne, where can people find your story? So first of all, when's Summerbrook Spring coming out?
Summerbrook Spring's coming out at the end of April.
Yep, lovely. So,
funnily enough, it'll be spring in the Northern Hemisphere when it's coming out.
Just sliding into autumn now, yeah.
Just sliding into autumn here. But by the same token, it's available through Iron Bridge Publishing, but you can also find it, you can Google it and it will come up where you can it's on for pre-order at the moment. Me personally, I've got a Facebook page. It's not an author's page as such, but on there I do have a blog on WordPress called Cogpunk Steam Scribe, because
that's fantastic.
when I first started it was just to do with steampunk, but over the years it's evolved into basically a little bit of everything, particularly to do with writing and how things are going. And I hope to have my own actual author's website up and running in the next couple of months. I've got to that point in my career, I think, where I need an actual author's website.
Yes, the tipping point is here. Yep.
And so it will be under my name if anybody wants to try looking for it in the next 6 months. So yes, there will be an author's website, and I will be linking to Iron Bridge Publishing so that because of the farm books, and I'll also be putting up a list of where you can find short stories that are still available. Lovely. And so because some of my short stories are online, so anybody can go look them up. They're usually the steampunk, science fiction and fantasy ones. They're not quite so children orientated, they're a little bit more adult, but by the same token, if you're interested in my writing, they'll be there and available to look at.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And good luck with the website and the launch. And do you have any final words for potential readers or writers?
Okay. Because they're two different people, though they often interconnect.
Yes.
To the readers, well, I'm a very keen reader, first and foremost. And so I feel like I'm a really big part of the reading community. Never be embarrassed by your to be read pile, because mine is quite big, mainly because I'm always ordering new books. I have something of a, what would you call it, addiction there. So I always have new books that I'm trying to read or reading while doing other things. So never be embarrassed of it. Be proud of it. The bigger it is, it just means your enthusiasm's high. And I'm always adding to mine. To the writers, never give up, never give in, never surrender.
Very good.
That's from Galaxy Quest.
I love
that's from Galaxy Quest quote. Yeah, I know.
It's all one job on this ship. Yes, it might be stupid, but I'm going to do it. Yes.
Yes, and I'm going to do it well. Right. Be brave and send stuff off. Because it's the only way to learn, really. If you're not trying to send stuff off you're not learning what publishers want. You don't learn how to submit things, because everybody has different submission guidelines. Please read the submission guidelines very, very carefully. They're not a suggestion. They are actually, or a guideline. They're actually law. Go to conferences and make lots of friends. Join a writing group if you can. Fellow writers have been there, done that, and will be very sympathetic when things are going bad, and are really happy to celebrate with you when things are going great. And the bottom line is to have fun, because if you're not having fun, neither are your readers.
Yes.
Nothing you can read, like I've read stuff by people that are obviously over it. And so you can feel it when you're reading it. You think, oh, you got a bit bored about this point, and you decided you're just going to whack through it. It's a professional writer thing to just keep going, but I still think that you need to show a little bit of enthusiasm in there, because again, if you're not having fun, you're not emotionally connecting with your author. And what I mean by having fun, I mean, if you're writing a terrible, tragic, sad thing, okay, it's going to be terrible, tragic and sad, but you're still going to do your best to make it the best, terrible, tragic, sad thing that ever happened.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That great words for both readers and writers. So Lynne Lumsden-Green, author of Summerbrook Spring, which is book 1 in the Summerbrook Bestie series. Thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us on Australian Book Lovers.
Oh, look, it was a pleasure. This is my very first interview, and it was completely painless.
That's good. I'm glad. I'm very glad it was painless. It has been fantastic to touch on your passions and to hear all about what goes into putting that little middle grade book out there. So thanks very much, Lynne.
Thank you very much for your time.
Lynne Lumsden-Green, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with Veronica, and thank you for such a warm, friendly and awesomely fun interview. And you must have had a ball having a chat.
I did. And look, talking about Asimov, about iRobot, talking about the Silver Brumby series, being able to create Galaxy Quest, it's just fantastic. So, I love all of the things that Lynne spoke about. And what really impressed me was with all of those things, and she's channeled it into a beautiful book for middle grade. And she has the sequel coming out in the not too distant future. So we might get her back for another quick chat about book 2 in the Summerbrook.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Definitely have to get you back, Lynne. So if you're listening, as soon as that book's out, it would be our honour to have you back on the podcast. Okay.
You know what time it is, Darren?
It is indeed. It is time for some 2.
Two quotes.
2. No, it's time for quotes.
2.
So,
all right.
What inspired your quotes today?
Well, I thought that a little bit whimsical.
Okay.
And just 2 that kind of struck me. And they're both from anonymous people, so who knows where they're from. So the first one, and really, Lynne saying, have fun, be yourself, do all those kind of things. There's a quote that says, always be yourself, unless you can be a unicorn. Then always be a unicorn.
No, I do like that.
You like that one?
Yes. I've got flashbacks now of cat unicorn memes, and because who doesn't smile at a cat unicorn?
Yes.
I like it because it does put it's a bit of a it gives you a bit of a giggle, but it's also so hey, unicorns aren't real, you are.
That's it.
So be you. Do you.
Yeah, do you, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Give us one of yours.
Well, actually took a couple of quotes today. I thought I'll use the little chat that you had with Lynne and the discussion around, country and farming and stuff like that stuff, which I thought was really interesting. So I've got a first quote is from a person called Daniel Webster, and it is, when tillage begins, other arts follow. The farmers, therefore, are the founders of human civilization. And by Daniel Webster. So I like that. And
that's, there you go.
Because until we can get the food sorted, everything else is a luxury.
Yeah. You've got to do that survival stuff, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So nice. A little bit shorter than the Voynich one from last time.
Yeah, that's all right. All right. I'm going to give you one now, and it's again, another anonymous. Let me just tell it to you. A diamond is merely a lump of coal that did well under pressure.
Oh, there you go. And then was exploited by a completely unrealistic market that introduced, I think, when was it, in the 50s or 40s? Beautiful marketing to say 3 months' salary would buy the ring to make but yes, under pressure.
Yes, that's what it is. It's just a lump of coal. It's just carbon, which I quite like. Good. What have you got for me now?
Well, I want to say jokes about if diamonds are so good, why is it that your saw blade has got diamonds on it?
Ah, yes.
No, so my second quote is from none other than, well, I'll tell you the quote first and then I'll tell you who it is.
Mm-hmm.
The quote is, I think having land and not ruining it is the most beautiful art that anybody could ever want to own. Any guesses?
No.
Andy Warhol.
Oh. I would never have guessed that.
No, but I do. No, actually, and to be honest, neither would I. Obviously, he's famous for his music and his influence on pop culture.
Yeah.
But what a nice quote. I think having land and not ruining it is the most beautiful art that anybody could ever want to own.
Yeah.
And probably never more timely than now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to just mention one more thing that Lynn said, which is never be embarrassed by your to-be-read pile. And I thought that's a really nice note to leave this episode on and do our little tagline. So readers, don't be embarrassed by your to-be-read pile. Keep adding to it. Yeah. Keep adding to it from Australian Book Lovers, which is australianbooklovers.com.
See, I interpreted that differently. I was going to say, don't be embarrassed, just don't let them know what the titles are. No. Number 22, come on in 22.
No. So do not be embarrassed by how big your to-be-read pile is. Keep gathering them. So, yes.
Let it be an inspiration to navigate and force time into the crazy world where you can enjoy the books.
Yes. So have a look at australianbooklovers.com. And if you'd like to follow the podcast, you can download us, of course, from all main podcast platforms. We'd love to have a review or leave us a few words of thoughts about what you think about the podcast. You can find us on social media. Twitter, we are at Australian Books, and we are on Facebook and Instagram at Australian Book Lovers.
Absolutely, we are. And we would love to hear from you should you have any thoughts. If you wanted to say hello, if you wanted to offer a book review, if you wanted to tell us about a book that's coming out or something that's exciting you in the Australian book world, anything at all, drop us a line. Happy to have a listen. Happy to read out something if you'd like to alert anybody to anything you'd like the world to know about. We're here. Yes. Our episodes are still coming. We've got huge guests still come with plenty more entertainment. But for now, I think it is time for our tagline. Although I did say, we're going to try and put a bit of, what do you think? Should we do it cinematic this time?
Cinematic.
Let's try it cinematic. And then
right.
I'll try and put some post-editing magic behind it.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to say this tagline as though, coming soon to a theatre near you.
Okay.
Oh, it rose from the water. But no, we'll see what we can do for having a bit of fun.
All right.
So,
okay.
You count us in and we'll go for the cinema.
Radio. We're going to go to the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, and then we'll go. Yeah? All right. There we go.
Okay, let's go.
So 1, 2, 3. Read more Aussie books.
Yeah, I'm going to need more than magic to turn that way into a cinema.
Yeah, no, we need a lot of help with that tagline.
But we'll see what we can do. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast, episode number 22. Wishing you all the very best. Take care, and we'll be joining you again real soon.
Bye for now.
Let's meet again when magic happens.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community, and a culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.